Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Stalk Them. A few years ago, I was a cashier at a gas station. I worked second shift. Each shift had a list of duties that they had to complete. Most were the same, except the third shift had to clean machines. However, there were other things they didn't have to do, such as stocking the cooler and changing the outside trash. One thing that was required was all shifts had to stock cigarettes. We would stock them, then do a count, then we would have to track what we sold. That was company policy for all shifts. Well, they had one person leaving at 10, with the third shift coming in at 10:30 and the other second shifter leaving at 11. We would get busy at 10 and sell a lot of cigarettes. Third shift was often late, so we would barely have time to count our drawers and do our paperwork, then leave. Well, our boss chose to ignore how busy it was and decided that the third shift didn't have to stock, but the second shift had to. She kept complaining that they weren't being stocked on second shift and that third shift didn't sell enough to justify stocking. She said she was gonna write me up if they weren't stocked the next time I worked. We had a back wall for display purposes, then our overhead were restocked. The next night I worked, I looked at every row and column to see what had less than the allotted amount. 9 packs for the first 2 rows, 19 for the other 2 rows, 3 columns across. I then proceeded to open new packs and stock each one full. The extra packs were put on the display case, where the labels said they went. The next day, my boss was complaining about how she had to count all those cigarettes and how long it took her. I told her she said if I didn't fully stock them, I would be written up, so I fully stocked them. Needless to say, she never complained about me not stocking cigarettes again. The next story is called Stinky Surprise. Several years ago, I worked in a daycare in the infant room. The state regulations said diapers had to be changed every 2 hours, or when the caregiver noticed the diapers were soiled, whichever came first. There was a boy that drank a lot, and so he peed a lot, and therefore got changed a lot. He was also one of those babies that only ever pooped if his diaper was dry. One day, his mom went on a rant about diapers. So I told her the state regulations, and she told me, well, don't check his diaper, just change him every 2 hours. They are expensive and you are using too many of them. My boss agreed, so I did as I was told. A few days go by and he started getting a rash. She sent cream and said, I don't know why he's getting rashes all of a sudden. To which I just said, yeah, that's weird, huh? I'll make sure to put cream on him. A few days later he was due to be changed about 20 minutes before mom was due to pick him up. I realized he also hadn't pooped all day. I knew it was coming. About 5 minutes before pickup time I smelled it, but I did not change it. When she got there, she took him and walked to the car and finally smelled it. I watched out of the window as she stormed back into the daycare in a rage, screaming, why didn't you change him? He pooped. You know he has a rash. My time had finally come. I told her, ma'am, I did exactly what you asked me to do. If you check his daily sheet, you'll see that he was just changed 20 minutes ago. You told me not to check his diaper and to only change him every 2 hours. She changed him and stormed off to find my boss, who surprisingly told her the same thing that I did. She never complained about diapers again after that, and I changed him as I felt was necessary. The last story is called Don't Tell Me What to Do. A while back, when I was still in high school, I worked at a local cinema to earn a bit of pocket money and experience. I stayed for a couple of years, working weekends when school was in session. I think it was halfway into my second year when the target of this story came into the picture. We'll call him Luke. Luke was a new hire and was just learning the ropes. This was common, as turnover was high since we were all students. He seemed alright at first, and everyone was nice to him, since we were all pretty close and knew one another from school, and we welcomed him in. I don't think even a week passed before the problem started. The first issue I heard of was that Luke was trying to flirt with one of the girls. Thing was, this girl was already in a relationship with one of the other employees, and everyone knew this, including Luke. That didn't stop him though. and eventually the girl told him to his face to cut it out. It only got worse from there. Now I do my best to see the good in people and give them the benefit of the doubt. Despite what the others were saying, I still tried to get along with him. This unfortunately changed during the first real conversation I had with him. We were on break at the same time, and about 5 of us crowded into the little break room for lunch. I forget what exactly we were talking about, but I remember it was an uncomfortable topic, and Luke was using a lot of expletives. The break room was not soundproof, and there were patrons outside, especially children. I tried to warn him about using that language so loudly, and that he might get in trouble if a customer heard him. Immediately his attitude toward me changed, and he responded with something along the lines of, "I can say what I want, I have the right to free speech. Don't tell me what to do." What? I was just concerned, but you do you. A few minutes later, the conversation had switched to high school, and Luke was raving about how Caucasians were the majority in all the high schools in our district. Now, for my high school, this isn't true, as most of the community and students attending were Latino and made up about 70% of our student body. I told him as much. It's not the case for my high school. Yeah it is. White's the majority everywhere. I have a friend that goes there. I actually go there. It's mostly, "Why are you talking?" "Excuse me? Who invited you to this conversation?" "I wasn't talking to you." "Who asked?" Now, this irritated me. I know it's a joke about looking for who asked, but this was before that became a thing, and I found it extremely rude. But in a moment of clarity, the best comeback came to mind, like arguing in the shower by yourself. And to this day, I could only wish to be able to recreate the moment. Smiling, I threw his words right back in his face. Free speech. The others at the table were laughing as I threw away the rest of my lunch and left the break room. My heart was beating too fast from the weird adrenaline rush I got, and I spent the rest of my break in the back of the concessions until it was time to clock back in. I think that conversation was what sparked Luke's hatred for me. Ever since then, he would glare at me whenever I walked by. His behavior kept getting worse. He would threaten to fight people. He was a short potato of a boy, so no one was fully scared. Argue, say rude, passive-aggressive or downright racist things, and was generally a jerk. At some point during a shift I wasn't there, he cornered the girl he had been eyeing and kept verbally harassing her. This was to the point that she hid in the manager's office where he couldn't get to her. She was a sweet and loyal girl and a friend, and she and her boyfriend could be described with the phrase puppy love and had been together for a long time. The boyfriend was angry when she texted the group chat about what had happened and wanted to get Luke fired. However, people were hesitant about this, saying that managers wouldn't want to because he'd claimed discrimination. He was trans and that he hadn't done anything blatantly wrong. Then another one of the employees made a suggestion. Luke was incompetent. We all knew this. Why not make the manager see it too? Revenge time. It wasn't hard to do, since Luke would tend to shoot himself in the foot. When possible, we'd point him out to managers when reviewing the cameras in the halls about him dumping his trash can when sweeping onto the ground in front of patrons. When he was cursing up a storm during a break, a text would be sent and someone would lead a manager to him to be caught. He rarely cleaned up, was rude and loud, and the incident with the girl didn't help his case. It still wasn't enough, and week after week, his name was on the schedule. Then my opportunity came. At the cinema, there's a position called Point, aka the ticket taker that lets you into the theater area. It's the second most dreaded position, the first being self-serve cleanup, as you have to stand in place and interact with customers at a rapid-fire pace, smiling and listening for theaters to be called at the same time. When the night ends, the last person on Point has to close and clean the self-serve stations. Today, to my initial dread, Luke and I were both on Point. The entire time, Luke would leave his station and pace the lobby. He wasn't supposed to leave Point and had to rock around customers to get back to his podium to help them. He was told off by a manager once or twice for this, but he continued his antics anyway. Then, as things slowed down, one of the managers approached me and told me we were going down to 1 point. This means one person at the center rather than at both entrances, and that I'd have to explain to Luke how to close Point before I went back to help clean concessions. It had to be this way, since I had already taken the sanitation test and Luke had yet to do so, and therefore wasn't allowed behind concessions. When I finished closing my Point, I walked over to Luke and told him to move his podium to the center so he could take closing Point. He did, though scowling at me. When he was set, I began to explain. So, you'll be closing point tonight after the last movie starts. You'll need to go away. What? I don't need your help, so don't talk to me. But I need to teach you how to close point. I don't care. Shut up. I know you don't like me, but this is work. You need to... No, I don't want your help. Just shut up. But screw off. Don't talk to me. At this point, I was beyond upset. I was furious. I was trying to help, even after how he had acted, how he treated everyone here. I didn't care what he said in the break room, but it shouldn't affect work. This was ridiculous. I must have snapped or something, because I complied, walking away, saying, "Fine, I don't care. Don't ever talk to me again." "Hey," I said. I was waving a hand over my shoulder and said, "Don't talk to me ever again." I went behind concessions to help where he couldn't reach me. I don't know when, but I started crying out of frustration, and one of my friends came and hugged me, bringing me to a corner to cool down. I don't get angry often, and when I do, it makes me scared. I was just sick of his antics, sick of the way he spoke to me, just sick of his attitude. I'm not sure how long I sat back there, but soon enough, that same friend came and waved me to the front of concessions. I wiped my face and walked out, and he pointed to point. There was Luke, being instructed by the manager on how to close point, and the manager did not look happy with him. Arms folded, frowning, flat tone, everything spoke of irritation. My friends said they'd already explained that Luke refused my help when the manager asked them what was going on. His point can be seen and heard from almost the entire lobby. Seeing this scene lifted my spirits a bit, and I was able to end the night relatively easily. The next weekend, when the schedule came out, I didn't even have to check my email. It was posted in the group text, specifically the section with Luke's name. It was blacked out. If he had quit, his name would have been removed, but the fact it was blacked out meant it was a sudden event. Luke had been fired. I'm not sure what it was that they fired him for anymore, but considering we were always low on staff and they had to worry about discrimination, I'm guessing there were enough complaints that they had to fire him. I'd like to think that the last interaction I had with him was the final nail in the coffin, but I was just glad to see him go more than anything. I heard he worked at a common fast food place for a while, but ended up getting fired from there too. Good luck in life, Luke. You weren't missed. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.